Hello, 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 and welcome to the Rag Company podcast. I'm Dane Hennen, and today we've got a very special guest. Not detailing, but definitely automotive related, and we love talking to him. Scott, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was a wonderfully warm welcome. Thank you very much.
You bet. I rack these off the top of my brain. Whatever comes out, comes out. Hopefully it sounds professional.
That's unscripted. Unscripted.
I don't have
Beautiful.
a script. Just make it up.
Dane,
That's half the fun.
I just want to compliment you on your beautiful taste in clothing. Beautiful shirt you got there going there. It's nice.
Thank you very much. I would turn around and show you the back, but
that's all right.
My phone right now, it's a little bit tricky.
I've seen it before. Yeah.
I figure you know what it looks like.
Once or twice.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It's a good shirt, though. I'll vouch for it.
It's one of my favorites. I wear it more often than I probably should.
You have holes in it. You have stains all over. We're like, Levi, you gotta get a new shirt, man.
Is this your way of asking for him to send you a new one?
Right.
No,
it gets real quiet.
we would never do that. Ever.
Hey, it's called
all t-shirts.
We trade.
That's right. All shirts are in a quarantine process. They're allowed to leave the home, I think, April 29th.
We have to put them into like a whole zip-up plastic room. They get sprayed down the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. Well, I mean, you are in kind of the epicenter, so I was going to ask, Scott, how are things where you are?
I don't know. It's a strange, weird disconnect. If you've ever, it's like one of those things. I think the best example I can give is if you've ever been on the news or watching the news and something's happening like at the corner. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you kind of like you're watching the news, but you feel like this strange disconnect, and then you duck your head at the corner. And you're like, oh crap. So I'll give you an example of that. You hear all these things. You're starting to see people obviously around you that getting sick or whatever it may be. And then I had to run to to a doctor's appointment, and I'm driving up past the hospital, and you see those refrigerated trucks where they're storing the overflow. And that part's extremely sobering, right? My sister-in-law, who's just absolute, I know people hear this stuff and they say, these healthcare workers and these people that are on the front lines are absolute heroes. But, when you really see the behind the scenes of it, my brother's wife, they have a baby. She's, she's not a baby anymore, I guess, but she's 18 months old roughly. And when you start to really think about the fact that, every day, when she comes home from work, there's a chance that she could potentially be sick and spread this thing to her family, but that's the risk that they have to take. Sure. It's pretty wild. And the stories are even worse. You know what I mean? The stories of these people, you can't have any visitors. So when these people unfortunately are in a position where they pass, they're doing it by themselves.
Nobody around
with iPads and phones. And these healthcare workers have to watch this episode transpire, more than a few times a day. And it's emotionally, I think more than the actual physical part, it's emotionally taxing on these people. So I can't say how much I have a newfound respect for that whole line of workers.
That profession, And I totally understand what you mean about the disconnect, because it is one of those things where you're like, oh, if I just close my eyes and I don't hear anything, it's not real. It's not there. Right. It's like, well, and unfortunately, there are a number of people online who seem to be convinced it's not happening to me, therefore it's not real. But this is the reality, and there is that effect happening to people that someone who's been affected, or you have a very close relative or friend or family member or something, whatever, who's been impacted by it in some way, if not actually had it happen to them. So it's becoming more and more real every day, but because there's like a gestation period and then it happens, a lot of people don't know until it's too late, frankly. And yes, there are many people who've recovered. It's definitely been a case of, all these stats get thrown around like, the blah, blah, blah kills more people every year. It's like, yeah, but that's not the point. If you're looking at raw numbers, we have to look at it like per capita, or, based on the number of cases, the percentage of fatalities is much higher when you're talking about this thing compared to other things like it. So that's where there's a disconnect.
I'll give you one thing that I think that people aren't thinking about, and I think it's unfair, because when people talked about this compared to the flu or whatever it may be, I totally understand the numbers, but just knowing from some of our family members that have actually gotten sick and then recovered, what you don't realize is apparently, and they don't know the answer to this, but there's a long-term damage that occurs to the lungs after this thing. It actually eats
it's kind
the
of like
lungs.
Chain smoking for a period of time. It's kind of a similar amount of damage is done.
Yeah. So now the question that they're not sure about yet, and I know this because my wife's cousin got it, and I guess now he's going to have to follow up on some different things. But like, the question is this something that will last indefinitely, or is this something that will eventually over time, fade? But there is this real left damage that's there, even if you get a mild case of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, depending on where you watch your news and stuff. I mean, one thing I've seen is, for example, somebody had CNN on. Chris Cuomo got it. So he's been kind of sharing his experience as he goes through it and stuff. It's like, oh, okay. So he's basically saying, a lot of people are saying, I just want to get it over with and move on. And he's like, what you don't understand is, man, this sucks to have. And just kind of going through the process and explaining it in layman's terms for anybody to actually hear and go, oh yeah, that doesn't sound like something very pleasant. Of course it's not pleasant, but it's definitely not something where it's like a cold or flu and you're like, brush it off, whatever. It's got more impact than that, and it's different because it's affecting your lungs instead of, runny nose, stuff like that aren't going to be as much of a case as, oh no, I have fluid in my lungs.
Well, so going back to just the loss of life and that kind of stuff, there was an article locally here that they did on my family, which I thought was kind of a surprise. But my dad and my uncle were in the paper talking about, they put their brother in a nursing home and he has dementia. And so they haven't been able to visit him.
Right.
And that's kind of a weird, I didn't even think about that. My dad, till he sent the article, he's like, hey, it's out in the paper today. I felt like an idiot because I was like, that never even crossed my mind that my Uncle Kim is sitting in his nursing home and he's not getting visitors. Half the time he doesn't remember who he is. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know, and when he does, if he does remember who he is, he doesn't, for that split second, it's not like he can grab a phone and make a phone call and ask and go like, hey, where are you guys? What's going on? Because he may forget who he is or what's going on that phone call.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
so
oh, that's kind of scary now. Cause like, he's just by himself, which is a weird, and thankfully there's no cases in that nursing home. No one's sick and they've done really well, but it was just an idea that I didn't even I didn't put two and two together when we're, getting groceries and we're, kids, we're having to watch which kids my kids play with in the neighborhood, and build plans with the other neighbors to go like, okay, we're gonna let the kids work on, play together on these days, and that's it. And we're not gonna go anywhere. They're not going. You're not going anywhere. It's just weird, that. All the rest of our lives, there's still so many people that we're not even thinking that are, being affected daily. That in a way that we're not sure about.
Yeah, my grandmother she's in a senior living community, so she still has her own apartment, but they have meals downstairs or whatever. So, they had the facility on lockdown. They weren't letting the residents leave or come or go. And so we were supposed to go up there. We couldn't do that. And then somebody actually got a case of it, and then they put them on lockdown. So she's been in her locked in her basically apartment now. Yeah. Locked in these apartments, and they bring every meal to her and different things like that. But, it's just, you don't realize, I mean, my mom, I feel bad, my parents were divorced at an early age. So my mom, we've all left the house. So she's by herself. I mean, not far away,
it's like my mom. Sure. Yeah. She's around the corner, but she's on her own.
So my mom is she's FaceTiming us and she's not that far away at all, but she, she's saying hey, I'm getting really, really, really lonely. I don't have anybody to talk to during the day. And, you feel bad, but we're still working. We're still, going around and, I'm in the office reduced hours, but, cause we're limiting the amount of people in the office at one time. But, when it comes down to my wife's working, she's, New York City, she's a New York City teacher, and they implemented this, learning at home, which now every school in the country probably has done.
We just started that this week. They started last week with like high school and middle school, and then this week they're starting all the elementary schools on that learning home. So we got my wife picked up a couple Google Chromebooks for that the school donated. Like, let us borrow. We got to turn them back in at the end of the year, but and then they canceled school for the rest of the year. So
so it's been pretty wild. And what's interesting is my wife, my poor wife, like I get to 3 days a week, I guess to go to work. I get to go to the office. But she's trying to teach her class and teach her thing and do her lives for the class. And then on top of that, she's trying to allow the kids to educate and do their assignments. So she spends, I don't feel, I feel terrible for the fact that, she comes home and I come home and she looks beat because she's, I may have been at the office for 11 hours, but she has been going since the time she woke up. And then she also had made dinner because she's home. I mean, the whole situation, she's at home. She's on, right. She's on. Yeah.
Same here. My wife was home with the kids and it's that same kind of thing. Like she said the other day, and I joked with Anthony this, she's like, have fun, like talking to other humans and,
right.
Being around other people, enjoy, like I'll be here with the kids. Like, because it's just, there's only so many times you can, you want to let them watch TV, but when there's other stuff that needs done, it's like, and there's only so many times you can say, go outside and play. Like, the kids are tired of playing outside. The kids are done with it. They don't want to do it.
They want their screens back.
But then you're like, I can't have them on screens all day, and I can't, and then
which is hard to do in this environment. I mean, that's what's sitting around idle. I was going to mention though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Dane, you go.
Well, I was going to say because of something I'd seen Joe Wetzel posting recently around just knowing like, okay, this is in the case of dealing with family and stuff like that, close friends, etc., people you talk to more frequently. Joe was bringing up a good point though about just the social ramifications, the long-term impact of just the way people have had an increased suspicion of one another, and there's a little bit more paranoia floating around, and just this sense of not necessarily trusting your neighbor if they don't have a mask or gloves. Like all this stuff is just kind of, it's low level stuff that's kind of building. And, some people are more susceptible to it than others. But I was curious what your take on it was, especially when you're in, a hot zone essentially where it probably is pretty strong. I'm happy to see that there are a lot of people coming together and doing positive things. But I do kind of wonder societally if this whole, being quarantined and communicating digitally, that distance, if that just starts to kind of jade some people.
Listen, I don't think that there's any misconception that there will be a lasting effect from this socially. I actually think there's, and I think that the hard part when you're in this situation is to pick out the positives and not dwell on the negatives, right? But I think what's interesting is there have been quite a few positives. I mean, starting with the negatives, I mean, yeah, it's true. Like you go to the grocery store, especially around here, it takes you a long time to get into the grocery store. I mean, it has for about a month now. You can't find anything that you actually really need. You're having to pivot to things that you don't normally buy because it's, would I rather have meat or do I want the chicken that I would usually buy? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to pick? And I'll give you a good, for instance, I mean, I'm Jewish. It's Passover this week. And my wife was like, I'm not I don't really love pork, just the nature of whatever it is, but, I'll eat it, in certain occasions. And so she had said to me, like, what do I make for Passover? We got to work out of the freezer here, like the last time we went to the store, the past 2 times that we went to grocery shopping, I mean, there wasn't any red meat and there wasn't any chicken available. So like I think she got shrimp, sausage, and like pork loin, like to cut up and make into, she's like, what was I going to do? I was like, yeah, I get it. Like, what are you going to do? Right. So, so she said, well, what do you want for Passover dinner? I got to work into the freezer. So, well, just not the pork, I'm pretty sure pork is not kosher for Passover.
We're going to make a compromise this one time.
Yeah. But when we went to the store, the interesting part is when you see somebody that doesn't have a mask, or if they get too close to you, now you're watching people ooh, they jump back, or they'll sit, you'll find that there's a lot of people that are really thoughtful. They'll oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to get that close, and they'll move out of your area.
No, I've seen that. Definitely.
I think there's some negatives there. I think there's some positives too. I mean, first off, I think on an education basis, this country was so far behind using technology that we've always had. It was just uncanny. So I think that this was a major, a little bit. And I think that will be a positive for education. I think that on a positive note, there are a lot of systems that were maybe in the background of companies to operate that hadn't been used in the forefront because they were always elective, right? Like allowing a company, somebody to work from home is an elective until it's forced. And then you say, how about that server access? How good is it really? Like, do your phones forward? Do these things work? Can you operate if things really happen? So I do think that there's some positives there. And I think that the other thing is that, and I don't know if this is happening by you guys, here it's just starting to get warmer. It's been pretty cold. And the one thing that I just can't get over that I've seen for the past 3 weeks is any opportunity that a nice day has even arisen remotely. You go out, families are walking together, and everybody's walking and they're together. Yes, they're keeping distances from other families, but you really get the thing, like, you get to spend more time with your family. Like my don't get me wrong, on these days I'm working more, but I'm able to go upstairs and eat lunch with the kids, rather than, at my desk, and I'm able to, my commute is so much shorter. So I'll put in an extra, hour or two here at, doing work, or I'll do it after they go to bed, but I'm getting to spend some more quality time with them at different portions of the day that I wouldn't normally get. So I guess I'm also cherishing the opportunity while it's here.
Yeah. Well,
things people took for granted, now it makes a lot of sense. People are like, oh, I guess that wasn't as essential as I thought it was.
Well, Anthony and I have always been able to work from home just because of the nature of the job. Like, because when we travel, we need to be in access to all our stuff.
Yeah.
But so Anthony and I had always been kind of built for this. So it wasn't a hard change for us. It's mostly just I think we do well in the office setting. We like having the folks around that we can talk to and break up the day.
You bounce the ideas off each other.
Yeah. And so the isolation has been a little harder. So we've been the ones to jump at, like, we'll go in the new studio and work for the day, like, just to hang out, because we're more sociable like that. But like Zoom, dude, we've had this since, I think we started using it right before SEMA to do the whole WOWOs launch with everyone. And we saw we saw a webinar that another company did, and Jeff was like, wow, that's some really cool technology, which wonder how much that costs to you. I was like, we've been paying for it for 8 months. We've used it maybe 5 times. And now it's indispensable. We've been using it every day on my Zoom account to run all of our company meetings every week or every morning, and then doing the podcasts. I mean, it's finally getting its due, but it is funny to see, the systems that have been put in place and the things that we can now do so easily. But we're still a physical company in the sense that we're doing limited, we're doing a 50% reduction in staff in the building.
You can't digitally pack a package.
Yeah. So all the employees that could work from home, or basically if you had an office, Carolyn sent you home and said, work from home. This was to prevent help the 17 downstairs employees to be able to continue to pack. And then we were able to space them out. We built more workspaces in the warehouse.
And much further apart.
Social distancing for everybody, and keep the train running. But then on top of that, we've had to start separating the employees to go like, hey, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to increase hours for everybody, and we're going to allow overtime, but we're also need to give you guys time that if you need, you want to have a couple days where it's just, hey, my kids are home, I need to spend these 3 days, working, and then the rest of 3 days or whatever off. We've had to accommodate. So John's had to change schedules around to make it so that packages are still going. But then he's called us and said, hey, you guys want to come in and help pack orders, which Anthony and I have done. It's been kind of fun to get back in and, you know, send in those orders. And it's fun to see the comments that customers are still, hey, thanks guys, appreciate what you're doing. Or I've been home and I've started detailing cars, you know, detailing all my cars and cleaning them. I finally figured this is a good time, you know, and it's fun.
Yeah,
to
if
see
anything,
the
people
orders.
are some cases buying more stuff now because they're either sitting idle or they have more time for projects or whatever it is. People are just kind of gravitating towards, you know, some of those things. Towels, people need towels all the time, but
well, and Anthony's been doing some lives, just kind of helping to teach people like, hey, you're stuck in your garage this weekend or this today, here's what you can do. And I was listening to your guys' podcast last week of all the ideas of stuff you could do around the house in the garage that you did. And I thought that was great because I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many good ideas in that a lot of people just maybe don't think about. Make the most of what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that there's also, like, we're working on a piece of content to be a little bit more, we're trying to come up with ideas. And that's been the tough thing for us is that, you know, we're in an epicenter, obviously, like you mentioned before, but some of our areas have been hit worse. And so Nick, who's our video media guy that, you know, does a lot of the stuff with me, he's in Brooklyn, and in the area of Brooklyn it's pretty surrounded. So he was one of the first ones that we were kind of like, all right, you're going to have to stay there. And now, you know, it's kind of rolled out this way more. So we're kind of in that way of learning how to produce content remotely. And that's been a struggle. Like it's, you know, to try to figure out, you know, it's one thing to do a podcast. And I think that, you know, with our podcast, it's not the end of the world. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about. You know how to do this.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you're trying to produce the video content that you're used to producing, and you're trying to do that without being in the same location, that really gets complex and it gets more difficult. So that's been a struggle. You know, I'll give you that. But you know, look, I think that there are a lot of people out there that just aren't able to get certain things, certain car parts, and the supply chains have dried and stuff like that. So the question really comes down to what things are available. You know, we've done our best to to keep shipping wheels and make them available the best we can. I mean, we do have a solid amount of back orders, but that wouldn't necessarily be that far off from this time of year, no matter what. You know, we're in race season, we're in busy season, and you know, I mean, maybe we're a little bit more over back ordered, but you know, we're going to have this huge wave of product that's, you know, we have this month even alone, we have, you know, like almost like, I think this week we had a container drop every single day. And then next week, I think we have 4 containers. And then the following week, I think we have 3 containers. And the following week after that, I think we have another 4. So it's like, we're just moving a tremendous amount of product. The only difference is, you know, and this is a little bit kind of exactly what happens, but it's a little bit more exaggerated, is that the stuff that's coming in off a container is not ever making it to a shelf. It's literally
it's already sold.
Right.
This way, palletized back out.
And we have that same issue where containers will be on the water and it's already pre-sold, the whole container. And I mean, it literally just, we unload it and load it into another one, and it leaks. I mean, it's weird. It's fun because in the business sense, you're like, wow, this is perfect.
We're killing it.
We're killing
and then you're like, I sure hope that boat gets here on time.
Oh, we don't have any product. Because then you're waiting for the next container to arrive, and you're like, well, it's like, when's the next one coming? That product will be in the next container in 2 or 3 days. You know,
well, I think what's hard for us is that, you know, you read some of these comments about people saying, they'll be like, your back order's 60 days. Why don't you just order more wheels? I'm like, no, hold on. The back order is 60 days, not because we're not continuously receiving that product. It's the back order 60 days because every single thing that we have that's going to be in stock for now into the next 60 days is sold. It doesn't, you know, there's 2 very big differences. Not having product for 60 days and not being able to fill that order because you waited till it said in stock rather than place a back order. Those are different things. And so it's hard to explain that to people over, you know, a comment or a DM, but, you know, it's the unfortunate reality.
Get bad anyway. But,
I'm still shocked by the amount of people.
Work it out. Yeah.
still shocked by the amount of people, and I don't mean this for wheels, I mean this in general, that they want something, they have the money for it, they know they're going to buy it, they're ready to buy it, but they will not put the order in until it says in stock. And then they get upset when you tell them, well, you could have ordered it at any time. You know, it's almost like,
I
think it's the perception, though. I think a lot of people, you know, I think that a back order is an indefinite thing for a lot of people. And I think that they think that, well, you know, so am I waiting months? Am I waiting weeks? You know, how long am I waiting? But it's a matter of how bad do you want. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people, you know, in terms of like the back end side of things, right, may look at a wheel and want a wheel really bad, and they say, okay, I really want this. Oh, it's back ordered, it's out of stock. You know, what are my other options? And they'll look at other options, or they'll you know, they'll change up what they want, versus, you know, kind of waiting for what they want, because everybody wants everything, you know, here and now. It's just that's the world we live in. And so I think that you're right, though. I think that you know, if they knew, right, if they were, how do I say this, trained as consumers to know that a back order would come in stock within a week to 2 weeks or something like that, or if there was some type of very legitimate window of time that made that, you know, possible, I think they'd be more open to it. But I think we've all been burned. You know, I think as consumers, all of us probably here in this Zoom has been burned by back orders before, right? Where you wait a month, 2 months, and then you get that email that you dread where it says, sorry, this item's been discontinued, or this item, you know, we've refunded you because we don't plan on receiving the stock. And I think a lot of people freak out about that. But I mean, in your case, you know, people need to understand that, you know, these wheels that you have are a staple core product, and they aren't being discontinued, right? Some of your biggest sellers, you know, aren't going to go anywhere just because they're currently out of stock. And it's kind of hard to train people like that unless you address that publicly or over a big message to a large group.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And I also think that there's something to the fact that when you want something so badly, listen, I can't say how appreciative, you know, we are personally to all those people. I mean, when I show you what back orders look like, I mean, it's incredible. The fact that these people are willing to wait for our product.
Yeah.
You know, there's, you know, I don't think people really understand, like, we really are, you know, a pretty small company in the relation to things. And when you start to talk about gratitude, like we're car enthusiasts, and for the most part, we're all extremely grateful for everything and all the support people give us. And that's not just something that we say. I mean, literally we look at some of these back order lists and we're like, man, I can't believe these people are, you know, just holding out. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, well, another thing too, with wheels too, because it's just such a finicky thing. Because, you know, people are always overly concerned about fitment, right? And they need to know what will work. And so if somebody comes out and outright says, hey, this is your vehicle, right? This wheel with this tire setup will work, and it will work. Like, it's a guaranteed thing. People love that guarantee that fitment will be precise, and that it will work without any modification, or, you know, without having to stress over it, because I think that's just it seals the deal for a lot of people. And so if they know that that's the setup that will work and it's going to give them the look that they're going for, I think that that's something that would be worth waiting for, you know. And I think versus taking the chance and saying, well, they don't have this offset, but they have this offset, which is now going to require me to run a spacer, and this is going to be a little bit more complex because, you know, now do I have to run extended studs, or am I going to run a hub-centric bolt-on spacer? I don't know. Let's go ahead and I'm saying there's a lot more uncertainty when people aren't sure what's going to fit. So when they find something that's going to fit for sure, I think that speaks a lot when they're willing to wait, because it just shows that, you know, that's how much they want them. That's how much they want that look.
Yeah, no doubt. And by the way, friends, if you're watching, all of the answers to most of those questions that Anthony posed are over on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You know, listen,
plug the
you know,
KONIG Wheels on YouTube.
Right. Yes. No. You know what's interesting is that, and I know you guys do it too. You guys, I mean, and I'll be so forefront that I think that a lot of your channel and the consumption of your channel is what drives us to continue to do as much informational content as possible. You know, you guys put so much out there in the community that it's just absolutely incredible. But you know, we've really taken a stance of, I don't care if you're going to buy another brand. Like that's okay. Like if you're going to, we're fine with that. Like you're going to buy another brand, like that's not going to stop us from making sure that our content is completely wheel based, wheel knowledge based. And if you find that you like something else better, like so be it. But it doesn't mean that we don't encourage you to, you know, check out the stuff we're putting out and see if it helps you, because I guarantee that a lot of the content that we're putting out there, the same as your content, is it's informational, but it's factual. It's not our opinion. It's not a thought. These are real things. You know, we just put up a video on thread engagement, and you know, it's a term that I know so many people just have no idea what it is, because you don't think about it unless you're a wheel and tire professional. And then there's so many, so we don't even have that many views on the damn thing yet, but I already had 2 emails come into the general market, and the guys forwarded it to me, and it was like, oh my God, I want to thank you. Like, I don't know if it would have been a problem or whatever, but I just found out, like, you know, I wasn't getting nearly enough, you know, turns onto my lug nuts. And, you know, now I clearly have a problem. Like,
I love that kind of thing where you have like a very, yes, it's kind of a niche focus, but it's important. It's some data that you want to get out there.
Yeah.
It may not get a ton of views, but you know, there's going to be that handful of people out there who go, oh, thank God, this is exactly the thing I was looking for. And with any luck, it ends up becoming a very searched term or a video that kind of rises up over time organically, because people find themselves looking for something using these keywords. And it's hopefully going to be the result that steers people wherever they go, but hopefully they remember where they got the info from. That's what,
and there's,
frankly, the company you're banking on.
There's people that care about that stuff, and it's just a matter of whether or not that they're educated about it, and whether or not that you can, how do I say this? Grab their attention to say, hey, this is important. You should probably look into this. I mean, you take a person that just, let's just say they're on stock wheel studs, and they say, oh, I really want these wheels. I do need to run a 20 millimeter spacer. So they throw on a slip-on spacer, and then they throw on this wheel, and they're like, oh, I have some threads left. I'm just gonna, you know, thread this down, and they're getting, let's just say 2.5 turns, right? And then they set it down. They say, oh, it's driving, everything's fine. But then when they actually find out
pothole
that you know, that's so dangerous that it's not even funny, they say, oh crap, right? Like I just thought since the lug nut was on, since it was torqued down, you know, I'm good to go. There's nothing to worry about versus what could possibly happen.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's hard because it's true, especially when it comes down to that subject. So many people confuse clamping force with thread engagement, and they're not the same things. They relate to the same thing, but they're not. And so, you know, it's like, well, all right, but if you torque the wheel down to 85 foot-pounds, you know, all the clamping force that you have is now being applied to 3 threads, versus when you take that same clamping force and you're able to get, 12 millimeters of thread onto the lug nut, you know, you're dispersing that clamping force over, you know, that distance. So it's, you know, it's not equal. And unfortunately, you know, it's not one of those things where, you know, when you use the wrong hardware, you might see the wheel wobble a little bit, right? You might have some indication something's going wrong as it's wobbling off your car. When you lose thread engagement, it typically happens in a very violent fashion, and then it's just like DOA, wheels gone. So
and hopefully not you in the process.
And again, not to go too much into thread engagement, but I think it's that type of content. I mean, listen, there's plenty of videos you guys have put out there that I watch. You know, I watch all the time, especially when getting into this whole detailing thing, because first you guys helped me to see the swirl marks, and now you've taken it so I can't unsee the swirl marks.
Sorry.
So
we apologize.
Right. So Yeah, so now I have just enough stuff to absolutely make my life miserable, and
Good.
it's working. Yeah, it's
Oh,
working.
fantastic.
Yeah, well, and I was having this conversation with my friend Jason the other day. So we had polished out his Evo, and then we had coated it, and we had done the coating and everything. And so we kind of talked about, because he even said, he's like, well, Anthony, before I met you, right, I would have never noticed, what a swirl was, or I would have noticed what an improper, like a towel, like a wipe mark would be, right, and what that looks like and things, because he's like, as a car enthusiast, or just as a general person that likes cars, all they do is that they see the body of a car. They see the car. They see the color. They see the body lines. They see
Is it
stuff
shiny?
like that.
Right? Like,
Is it shiny? Right? But they don't really look deeper than that, right? They don't really look, because they just see a physical body of something, right? It's like seeing like a Supra for your first time. That's all done up, and you're like, wow, that's a Supra. Look at that, just because of that existing as it is, right? But from a detailer standpoint, what we look at is okay, well, it's got some clear failure over here. It's got some, it's got the bumpers rock chipped to hell. You got all these different things, and we think not like as we do see that as a negative, right? But we also think of how much better that would look if that was fixed, right? Because the perception of people seeing a car that is shiny, right? They say, wow, that looks like a brand new. I mean, I can't tell you how many people think my damn Honda Civic behind me. They're like, I have people that are saying that was resprayed. That was painted. I said, no, it wasn't painted. It wasn't painted at all. And they say, no, it has to be, because that looks like a new car and you painted it. And I said, no, if you were to look deeper, right? If you were to have the eye that I have, you'll notice that I have more scratches and dents on this car than I can even stand. But because you're seeing the shine of this car, right? You're seeing the reflections and the gloss and all of that. It's giving you the perception that it was painted. And so it's very like, it goes very deep onto how you look at it. And I think, before you found out what a swirl was, you saw your car as a car, a 350Z that exists, right? And people will notice things like wheels, and people will notice things like the stance of it, and they'll notice the body lines, and maybe aero is something that they're going to notice, right off the bat. But it almost like the paint, the actual quality of the paint is typically an afterthought, because especially in a world where we're spoiled by wraps now, right? And we see wraps, and the other day there's a customer.
Oh, that looks like paint.
Well, yeah. So people think.
I mean, yeah. At a glance in your background, that's very convincing. Because normally depth is a hard part to replicate.
But all my neighbors thought that was paint when I pulled up with it. They were like,
wow, how'd you do that?
That is the most beautiful paint job. I can't believe they put all the letters and stuff. I was like, those are all stickers. All those. Well,
there was that girl that with the 240 that came in for a photo shoot a couple weeks back, right? Right when I was walking up to her car, I noticed a very is very lackluster look. It looked very
it was very
flat.
dull.
It looked very dull. And so the first thing I asked her from 10 feet away was, oh, did you have the car wrapped? And she says, no, it's just a really bad quality paint job. And the closer I look, I'm like, holy crap, this is. I mean, like, but that's the sad part, is that I'm like, I really did think that I thought that was wrapped, and it wasn't wrapped, it was painted. And but to most people now, right, you see something that looks so you can automatically just assume that it's a wrap job. But if you see something extremely high gloss, right, then you assume that it's a respray. But then what most people don't know is that middle ground there where all the detailing happens, to where you can make something, you can transform something completely one way or another. I mean, like the fact that Levi's wrap is something that's polishable, most people don't even know that you can do that, and you can get that.
It's
that
ready for it needs to be polished again and coated, like, because it's starting to dull out. I'm getting some, just, you can see Mars and touch points where the wrap has scratched. Just from frequent washing. And so We did that. We did that wrapped car that we had. So Scott, when we did this job, we brought in the car from the year before that we had wrapped at the same Wrap Institute live event. And it had spent a year just going through automated car washes, and that was it. Well, we polished it all up and then coated it with G-Technic Halo, and it looked like a brand new wrap job again. Right. It was crazy, the transition and change that made. And it was like, oh man. So car care is something that I think a lot of the people in the it's always been like that. You walk around, like at SEMA not so much, but at SEMA you still see cars that have shitty paint because they're just haven't been polished or whatnot. Sure. But you go to like a local car show, Boise Roadster show, there's only 3 or 4 cars, and they're usually grade 8 cars or cars that are actually on the circuit that have nice paint, and the rest are all completely look like they washed them all with Brillo pads. Or you go to the outdoor car shows and we all see the old man with a California duster,
car duster,
he drops the towel on the ground, picks it up, shakes it off, keeps wiping, or it's just a bag of janky microfibers that it's funny to see. But if Anthony or I walk up and talk to him about his paint, they're very confused because they're like, what are you talking about? I just, that's a new paint job. Looks fine. Looks perfect.
Well, it's like a mini ethical question as to whether you tell them or not.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you don't
want to ruin everybody's day.
I mean,
as a car enthusiast,
saw that.
Well, as a car enthusiast too.
So are you saying though that you don't like the California duster?
No. This is going to be news to some people.
Yeah.
I'll be right back, guys. I need to go throw something out. No, I'm just kidding.
No, totally not related.
But so as a car enthusiast though, like example for, let's say you're not a detailer, right? You're never going to be a detailer, but you've taken your car to a detailer, right? You automatically know that your car is going to be looking a lot better once it gets back from that detailer, right? But you look at that service as something that, like, wow, I have a freshly detailed car. Dang it, I hope to keep it looking like this for as long as I can. But within proper techniques, in a year, you're already booking another detail because you're like, oh, I want it to look exactly like it did from that detail job, and I want to get that get the detail done again. And as just a basic enthusiast, that is a service that is going to be done multiple times over the course of your ownership to keep that car looking as good as possible. But what most people don't know is that they're inflicting most of the damage themselves by improper washing or improper wiping or whatever the hell they're doing. That detail that they got done could be the last major detail that car could ever need. That could be it. As long as you maintain that, you're good to go. Indefinitely. But a general person is going to see that as, okay, well, they're going to make this look as good, as good as possible again. It's going to be fantastic, and I can't wait to show off my freshly detailed car. But
it's so,
we try
to
do the best we can.
It's so interesting when I hear you say it like that, though, because it's almost like you guys need to put out a long format piece of content that is one of those things where it literally, that's the title, like how to make sure this is the last detail your car ever has, and really give people a long format answer. And how do you maintain that detail? I mean, they could put it together by watching all your content, but it's so true. There's really, when you really start to think about that in that gravity with that title, it's it's true. You could do that.
Oh yeah. And that's how how do I say this? A very obsessed detailer, right? A guy that's really going to do a good job, who's going to be really proud of their work. I mean, really deep down, we, obviously we like repeat customers, but if I'm detailing a car and getting it perfect, right? Honestly, that's the last time that I really want to do that to that car again. I don't want to keep, doing that car over and over again. I'm happy to wash it and maintain it through washing, but I really don't want to have to do a deep dive and polish that car again. There's several cars that I mean, that I can think of off the top of my head, and probably thousands that's Levi's have done, where he's like, I really don't want to ever touch this car again, and I hope that person maintains it, takes care of it, because most detailers have the intention that we want them to do a good job, right? We want them to maintain it, and some detailers will take, will offer supplies that they can sell to the customer to say, hey, this is what everything that you can do to maintain this, or you can bring it back to me to wash. But it really depends on the car too, right? I mean, if somebody like Jason, right, brings me his Evo, and I've already done a paint measurement gauge on, I've already measured the depth, and I see that he's at 3.4 to 3.6 mils all the way around, I'm in my head, I'm like, well, crap, man. Like, I don't want to have to polish this thing out again, because I don't want to be the person to burn through this, because to be honest, you don't have a whole lot of clear left on this vehicle. So hopefully this is the last time this has to be done. And we think that way about cars that we care about, and cars that we know that the person cares about as well. But, for the mom in her minivan or things like that, where she can't really see scratches, and we can use an all-in-one polish to where she'll be happy, we know that we're not really inflicting that much damage to get it to be acceptable, to where I could say, yeah, I'll polish this again in a year, or I'll polish this again in a couple of years. It's not that big of a deal. But it really is something that I'm talking specifically about polishing, right? When I say detailing, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about washing your car or throwing a quick detailer. I'm talking about when we are removing paint to make that car look better, or we are using heavy cleaners on an interior to make that look better, right? We can only use heavy cleaners so many times on the same stains, right? We can only do that so many times before you have to say, well, you either need to eventually sell this car and get a new car, or you need to take really good care of it and stop spilling coffee in the same damn spot on your carpet, right? I mean,
who'd have thunk it?
Yeah. I was just going to say, when coatings came out, that was the fear. That was the fear, that if a ceramic coating came out and you put it on someone's car, they didn't need to do anything ever again. And if that was your customer that maybe came in every 6 months and got a, polish job on it, you're not going to be selling them on that anymore. And that was the big fear. And the reason a lot of people didn't want to do coatings, because they were like, well, no, that's going to take, I'll do it for the
like
big
putting the period at the end of the sentence. I'll never.
Yeah. I'd rather, instead of getting $1,000, I'd rather get an extra $200, $200 to $300 a year from you every year, because then I can, on just the exterior. So that was a big point that a lot of guys were worried about. But
the way they addressed
but that's what we drove it, was maintenance washes, was selling packages, teaching customers, selling products. It created a reason to have, and I've always said this to folks, when you coat a car, you teach them how to wash it afterwards. You teach a customer, and two things will happen. They'll either see that it's way too much work, and they'll either buy the maintenance package from you and go, yeah, I'll just bring it in, every 6 weeks and have you clean it, you wash it, or they'll find out what they need and they will want to buy it, and they'll ask you, can I buy this from you? And you'll get an extra sale on it. But the goal is that hopefully you've trained your customer to keep their car clean, which hopefully would then limit the amount of work that you have to do. You still want them to come in, you still want them to do stuff, but it is very interesting and I'm sure the wheel industry is like this, in which you're selling something that's not consumable. And then how do we create that consumability to a customer? Because if a customer's buying one set of
wheels,
them
racing.
You're hoping you send them racing, that they break some or need new ones.
Well, I think, what's interesting is, and this is something we've talked about kind of a lot in our podcast and different pieces of content, is that the one misconception people make is that wheels are not consumable. Now, the caveat to that is that, a wheel does have a lifespan. It does have a period of longevity. However, it's not as simple as a brake pad, where a brake pad will say, oh, it has 30,000 miles or expected whatever. It's not like a clutch. It's not in that respect. But a longevity could mean anywhere from, the moment you leave the place where you had them installed on the car to, the entire time you own the car. And it has a lot to do with use use and care and a whole bunch of different factors. But, people have to understand that wheels are a wearable item. The speed at which they wear is completely dependent on their use and kind of how they're taken care of. But it's possible,
Well, like where you are, your roads aren't as meticulous as Idaho roads.
Probably not.
As meticulous?
Yeah.
Roads. What happens is I swear that what their goal when they do roads here is to make them so that they come up. First off, if they pave a road, they only put like a thin coating on the top. So the potholes.
So when it freezes, it'll crack.
It still
the potholes that will be there, they'll be back in 15 minutes. But when they fix these roads, I think that they do it with a point of trying to make sure that you don't fall asleep at the wheel, so that you actually have a course to drive through. It's very
fun. Yeah.
Right. It's like it's a slalom of potholes. And if you're really smart, what you do is you learn how to memorize your trip to work. And it's a very choreographed routine of switching to this lane during this period because you know that this is smoother and back. It's a nightmare.
So it's not a conspiracy that a wheel company is based there?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is. But you look at so the wheels I've got on my Elantra are not Konigs, but I've had to replace 2 of them in 5 years, and not because of failure, but because of curb damage or one had a hairline crack. So they're not like, I bought these wheels, they're going to be the be all end all. I got nice roads. I don't have potholes. I don't have anything to really damage, but there were still I keep up on my stuff and I was like, I'm going to switch over, and I switch over, I put winter wheels on my car. And so even though I have 2 sets, some people might think I'm crazy because I have a winter set and a summer set, but my summer set, I'm still keeping an eye on and making sure. And I mean, this is on an Elantra, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. This isn't on
a high performance machine.
Well, it's lowered, and
I have to keep up on it. I have to make sure that it's nice. But the point is, like, you're right. Like, a lot of people just don't see that. And as detailers, I see that because I see customers' cars come in that they have never cleaned their wheels. They've never washed the brake dust off of. Right. And that brake dust creates iron that then leaves a deposit that then increases the weight of the wheel, which then puts the wheel out of balance, which then destroys the tire, which then, there's a lot of
they start going down. Yeah, and they start going down this path, and my favorite parts are not my favorite parts. That's not accurate at all. But what I'm amazed by some of the phone calls and warranty claims that we get and we have to deny, and people don't see the reasoning. You drive through a swimming pool, you've damaged your wheel beyond belief, and you're going to say no, the wheel wasn't strong enough to take it. When was the last time you bought a Toyota Camry? Drove it into a wall.
Oh my God.
You drove it into a wall and then you took it back to the dealer and said, I don't know what's up with this car. Something is clearly wrong with it because it just totally smashed when I hit the wall. It is virtually the same thing. And people think that when you buy wheels, they're indestructible. They're supposed to last forever. And you go back to the detailing point. And what's interesting is we'll see a wheel that either somebody used wheel acid on, which is extremely apparent, or has driven through 492,000 car washes, and we see the brush marks that have blown the clear off the wheel, and they want to know why they're getting clear coat issues.
Okay, because there's no clear coat left, bud.
Because you took it off, and then all the wheel acid that you put on right after that got underneath the rest of the clear coat.
Yeah, and just kept breaking it.
Just finishing the job.
They've never cleaned their wheels on a whole year or whatever it may be, and now they want to clean them. So they put that wheel acid and all this stuff, and they go, well, the wheels got rust marks all over. I'm like, it's aluminum. It's not going to rust. Like what you're talking about there is oxidation that's coming from brake dust or whatever that's baked into the clear coat from leaving it on there. And now you're saying it's our issue because we didn't properly clear coat a wheel. I just think that with any product, there becomes and here's the thing, we have a very, very, very low defect rate. We really do. We have a high QC quality, a high QC process. We, it's checked multiple times, multiple places, multiple different people. But what always gets me, and you get this from being on the other side of it as well, is that you have to really put yourself in a position of knowing when warranties are valid, right? Like I know when I plug my TV into the wall and I've put it into, a protected power strip and stuff like that. And 3 months after I bought it, my TV just stops working. I know that's a valid warranty claim. Right. I also, as a consumer, know that when I plug my TV into a wall outlet and there's no power protection and we have a blackout and then the TV turns back on, that I was and doesn't turn back on, I was the failure there. I did not do the right thing, right?
Yeah,
and
you didn't follow the manufacturer's instructions.
So many people, they don't want to live up to the fact that they didn't do the right thing and they just want people to take care of it. And then unfortunately they go to social media and they want to make this big thing. Now we don't have that happen a lot, but you guys know what that is. I'm sure you've had it.
Oh, I have a customer service thing that literally said that they gave us a 1-star review because they didn't like how thin the towel was.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, what the hell does that mean?
Okay, and then you look at the towel that it's
don't know what to tell you, bud. We put the stats right there on the website, right. So all the information is there.
Thinnest towel that we sell, and that's their. And it's like, I can't help you. You bought the thinnest towel. You read the listing that said this is our thinnest, lightest towel, and you're mad that it's too thin.
Right.
Like,
right.
If you
don't get us.
Call. You can email.
Don't get us for false advertising. Yeah, I mean, it's listen, I think the funniest thing is, and this just came to my mind because I was looking at it last night, is that I'm looking for another set of transfer punches. And for people that don't know what that is, I like to make things and fabricate quite a bit, and especially when it comes to cars. And a transfer punch set is essentially a bunch of different punches that are in different thicknesses and and diameters that you can use. Like if you want to transfer a set of holes to another material, you want to build your own flange or whatever it may be. You put these transfer punches in with the right size. You give them a tiny tap on the material, and what it does is it leaves you this little tiny pinpoint that you can see where the center of the hole was. Right?
Right. Correct. Yeah.
Then what you're supposed to do is take a center punch and punch the center of the holes in. So anyhow, I'm looking for another set of transfer punches, and all these people are writing these reviews. They're junk. The points keep coming off because they're using them as regular punches. They're just trying to drive these things. No, guys. You're supposed to lightly tap the transfer punch and then get a center punch and then drill the thing out. Like it's not
harder.
Yeah, no, but it's like, what I mean is it's just another typical use of improv. And all these people are panning them. And I'm thinking to myself, it's because you don't know how to use them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like it's just not a fair.
Well,
but when has that ever stopped anybody?
That's pretty much my life with IK sprayers. Right. And so, with the sprayers, it's specifically the foamers, the things that create foam. And here's, I'm not going to go super deep into this, but basically, they are an aerator. They create foam, right? And so when you fill these foamers up, you fill up the canister, right? You have to first off be using a product that can foam, right? So typically it's something. It's got to be some type of soap-based product or something with like a foam surfactant. There's got to be something in it to be able to make it foam, right? So that's the first battle, is making sure they're using the right chemical. The next battle is making sure that they're diluting the chemical. And we make it very apparent that any chemical that you put in there has to be diluted, because how this foamer works is basically you are pumping it up. You have air inside this canister as well as product, right? And in order for that product to come out, you have a pinhole the size of a tack, right? That basically that product has to go through in order for that to basically aerate, and then obviously project the foam and create the foam out of the nozzle, right? And people are putting, gels inside there. They're putting like wheel
and
gel,
not diluting them, just straight.
Yeah, and they're just putting it straight, and they say, hey, it's not coming out. And I tried to explain. I'm like, that's
it's
not
too viscous, right? When a product's too viscous, it's not going to be able to go.
You're putting motor oil in a thing, and you're trying to force it through a pinhole. And
I'm like, it's not going to work, right? And so I explain the dilution, and they say, well, I don't want to dilute it too much because I want it to work. And I say, okay, the chemistry of how this works, and so you were aware, right? And the reason why you're foaming in the first place is because you want lubrication and you want to cover a large surface area, right? The beauty of an aerator is when you're aerating a product, you're technically activating it much faster, right? Instead of physical agitation,
using less product.
Yeah, instead of physical agitation, you have air agitation, if you want to call it that, and you're able to use less product. That is the whole idea of foaming. It's literally, it'd be like saying I want to foam my vehicle with a foam cannon, and people say, well, I want the soap to do the work, so I would rather just dump undiluted soap all over my car. And I'm like, what?
Better,
no,
right?
you would never do that, right? So it's the same concept when it comes to these foamers. So we get so many people that but I don't want to say it is user error, but they don't understand the concept of it, but they want the result, right? They see us in the social media posts, they see us in the videos, and they see this really cool result, and they say, well, I want it to do that. And I say, here's every single thing down to the product, the dilution, which foaming tip to use, how to use it, how to do this to create that result, right? And I say, dilute this 10-1. And then I get a message back. Hey, I just watched the video and I was doing 5-1 and it's not working. And I said, if you watch the video, then what's the first thing I said? You said 10-1, but I want the product to be more powerful. And that's where I'm like, I'm literally like, I am like,
so you didn't listen.
Or
okay,
my favorite is they'll say, my favorite though is they will say, I can't get it to spray. Can't get it to it just sprays a little bit on there. And it's like, well, how long
you're
did you
lying.
pump it?
Mine doesn't do what you show it doing. So
well,
you must
and
be
they're
doing
like,
something tricky. You must be
got this
sneaking
awesome
something else in between
swap.
cuts.
And I said, well, Anthony pumped it until it burped. Did you pump it till it burped? I don't know. Well, I did like 5 pumps.
He's like, well, I burped.
That's not
Well,
that's not
you
the
need like
same, bud.
25 or 30 sometimes, depending on the product and how much volume's in that tank. So you have to pump it until the release valve tells you there's optimum pressure. They're like,
and then they say, well, I don't want to pump that many times. I didn't know this was a pump
then I
sprayer.
guess this just isn't for you, bud.
I am sitting here and I'm like, okay, so here's and yes, maybe you could call this marketing, right? We're not trying to swindle people, right? But if I posted a video of me pumping up this sprayer 25 times, is that going to be sexy? No, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see me pumping up a sprayer. They just want to see the result. So that's what we film, the result. Typically, they'll see me do a couple pumps because we don't want to film the whole pumping process because, again, that's just tedious and it's very unappealing.
It may get to that.
People complain we talk
And
too much of videos already. They don't want to see
guys are
going to
be
sitting
like,
there the whole time.
Right. You're going to have to be like, if you guys want to see the pump action, go to TikTok.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
It's exactly what it is. And another thing that eats at me too, right, is like I said, that pinhole is very, very small to where this comes through. And what they will do is they will take, let's just say they're doing a 2-bucket wash method, right? They will fill up their sprayer, they'll dunk it in their water inside their bucket, right, that they've already been using to wash their car. And then they screw on the cap and they pump it up and they go to spray it, right? So what they're doing at that point is they're picking up whatever contamination that they had in their bucket, right? It could be a grain of sand or whatever it is that now clogs their sprayer and now goes so far up.
It's a legit grain. That's a legit grain of sand.
That it is, I wouldn't say it ruins it, but it clogs it. And now it's that you have a piece of sand that has gone to some weird complex area inside this sprayer. And when they show me the result and I troubleshoot with them, they literally run me through the whole thing. And I have to sit there and say, well, I guess it is broken, or I guess something's going on. And then that's when, I get a little more information from them. They're like, yeah, I've just been filling it in my bucket. And then my light bulb moment clicks and I say, oh my God, now we have to go back all the way to square one. And I have to walk you through, everything all over again and then tell you where you went wrong. And so, like I said, when it comes to something mechanical with a lot of moving parts, that's our most complex thing we sell. And it is something that gives me the most gray hairs.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising that's where most of the, not to say warranty work, but just the most troubleshooting happens in terms of customer service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard. It's like, you know, we sell, you know what it is. Like we sell, hundreds and thousands of, wheels a year. And when you get that kind of volume on the street and you've been doing it for 40 years, you're going to have people that are going to call every day and have some sort of concern, issue, question, whatever it may be. And we are committed to answering every single one of them. And we do. And so you're going to have people that are not going to understand. And there's going to be people that are going to think that, something happened. But, the truth is, it's like, we take what we do really seriously, the same way you guys do. And we take every customer that buys our wheels, extremely seriously. And we go beyond in any direction we can to help them. And, if there's ever an issue or a valid issue or even remotely a borderline issue, we take care of it. But, you can't, because there's so much influence on what things are. I mean, for example, like we can't think about it like this. We can't road hazard warranty wheels because all you have to do is pull out of the installer and drive into, a massive pothole, and you might have a bend. Like,
or drive off a high curb. Something.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like you can't, like if you take your car that has a 35 or a 30 series tire on it, and you want to go off-roading and hit the trails, like, hey, guess what? Maybe that wasn't the right wheel and tire package for you. Like, and that's the part that we can't, how do you put something on that? I don't know how to.
There's so many variables.
Right, which is why a lot of times it's like, well, speak to a wheel and tire professional. That's what your goal is. And you guys have to have that same point. You get to a point where we've shown you everything. We've put the disclaimers on it. We've said, hey, look, we're showing you, do it at your own risk. There's skill that's involved here. But like at the end of the day, if they take their wheel and they put on too aggressive a compound or whatever it may be, and they, wheel across the hood and burn through their paint because they're not moving the polisher around the right way, like, you can't call and say there's something wrong with the pad or the polish or the towel. Or, I mean, at some point there's got to be some ownership over it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
man, why do we always come off so negative?
No, that's the thing. It's like sometimes when you get a bunch of industry people together, you got to vent a little bit. But at the same time,
everybody likes this kind of stuff. So
this is meant to be to people's benefit. It's basically to say, no, we're not telling you don't call in with your warranty, whatever. Just think about it first. Really.
Right.
Well, a lot of it is just common sense.
Common
sense. And
it's
like,
not
think
that
about why
anymore,
you're calling. I had a guy who ordered gray 365s from our website, then sent an email because what he didn't realize was our gray 365s are known as the minor edgeless. That's the other name for them. And if you go on our website and type in minor, it comes up as a gray 365. And he bought a case and they were prepackaged in bags. And the case that got shipped was a case that would normally go to Amazon of prepackaged 365s or minors. He saw that, opened them up and was like, oh my gosh, I've got a whole bunch of minor towels. No idea why you guys messed up. I need to ship this case back to you, and I need to get my actual order of gray 365s. And I had to say that's what a gray 365 is an edgeless minor. That's the name of the towel, and what you have is the towel. And he goes, but they're prepackaged. And I said, yeah.
And they say fine. This, it's a different name. And
I said, but they're all prepackaged from the factory now. And that's just how we do things. So you got your towel, man. But he was so stressed and confused. But if he would have taken just a couple seconds to just check the website, read it a little more and go, oh, okay, that towel's the same. Or maybe just send a message. Hey, is the 365 the edgeless minor? Yeah, it is. It's the same towel. It says right there on it.
And in fairness, we don't have a lot of towels that are literally like a redundant thing that are just renamed and put into a different category. That's one of the exceptions because people always ask, well, okay, if they're the same towel, then why'd you name this one the metal polishing towel? Why is that? Well, it's because the color that it is, it works better. So when it gets dirty with like, metal shavings, whatever happens to go into it, oh, I'm not messing with that towel on other things like paint.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just to help separate. But yeah, I mean, that's where honest confusion comes in. But we don't do that with a lot of products. It's mostly just that one.
Yeah. But it's just using common sense and thinking about, how best to use products, period. Whether it's, getting a set of wheels and what you want to do with them, to, driving a Honda Civic that's shiny. It's just taking care of things and knowing how to do it the right way. I think is what keeps everybody sane.
Looks like magic to everybody else.
And I think that there is something to, people talk about like, how do you choose different things? You may have, like there may be a company that, I mean, maybe there's not, that offers, similar quality products to you guys or whatever it may be. But really, when you pick a product, I think that there, really, I know it's real easy to want to pick something based off of price, right? It's really easy to go to Amazon right now and put in microfiber towel and come up with some really cheap towels, but are they the right towels for you, right? But there really is something to being able to purchase products for companies that take the time to try to make content and inform you and give you the right thing and give you the steps and give you those things to think about, not only for the accountability complex, but for the fact that accountability will make you a more knowledgeable person that will get a better life out of the products that you're buying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
and people see like an expensive product and say, oh, that company's just lining their pockets. But no, the reality is we put our stuff right back into the company, as evidenced by media studio, all this other stuff. Sorry, Anthony, I cut you off there.
Oh no, I was just saying basically, and that's where, for example, right, within the last couple years, right, we have seen a big influx of people finally covering wheel topics, right? I mean, about damn time, considering that, our greatest resource until a couple years ago was still forum posts, right? With pictures, being hosted by Imgur from like 10 years ago or, whatever it was. And so basically when you wanted to learn about wheel fitment or you wanted to learn about what a wheel looked like or, the different face, styles on which one was more concave than the other, yada, 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 really all we had was pictures. And until the last couple of years, now we've kind of started to see more wheel videos being talked about like Fitment Industries and, and so on and so forth. But I mean, you guys are finally putting out the information that like was so needed. And it is so, precise and exact and gives people exactly what they need to know. Whereas, I mean, you're one of the wheel manufacturers doing that, but there is still 100 other wheel manufacturers that haven't even gone into that realm yet and are still letting, their foot soldiers do most of the work. And it's like with you guys doing that, not only does that help your SEO, not only does it make me feel better as a buyer and as a customer, knowing that there is that backing, but also your interaction that you guys also have within your social media stuff. The fact that you guys respond back to comments is huge because there's so many other wheel companies that feel like they're, above responding back to comments and stuff. If you go to their social media pages and you're sitting there like, dude, this is a simple question. I know it's the same question you get every single day, but if you can answer that, you're going to make that guy feel 10 times more comfortable. And whether or not he does purchase the wheel, who knows, right? But at least you'll be the one wheel company that responded back to him, whereas nobody else did.
Yeah, and I think that there's something very big to when you look at a company's motivation. Like, I think everybody has to, do business because when they make money, they pay their staff, and that's how they continue to do business. But, when you look at a company's motivation, I think, at some point when you can see that it's completely transparent, that our motivation is longevity, not this year's profits, right? Like our point is we've been around for 40 years. We want to be around for another 40 years. Like this is a culture that exists within our community, within our company. When we're for motorsports, when we're for the enthusiasts, when we're for different car segments, because we want this to continue to go on and go forward, our motivation is legacy. Our motivation is we just want to be contributing to the community, to the automotive industry, to different things. And when you can look around and know that there's so many other companies based off of what they're doing is based off of the fact that they just want to sell you something, I think that there really is something that, you hope people get, which is there's only one of two ways. You can have what you want, or you can try to support companies or look at products that actually care about what they're doing. They're generally, and I don't want to say this 100% because it's not 100% accurate, but for the most part, when you look at a company that really cares about their legacy, their long term, what they're doing, how they want the industry to go, with an unselfish picture, that you'll generally find a company that does care about their products enough to put in more R&D time, more research time, do a better job producing their product, because they know that you need to have that to have longevity, right?
Yeah.
So you start talking about quality and how does it factor in. I think there's something really there to be said by it. And even companies that have been around for a long time and maybe aren't doing some of these things, again, you might find some truth to that, and not always. There's some companies that don't put out anything, don't do anything, still want to sell wheels, make great products. I'm not saying that that's 100%, but I will see that there's going to be a more of a correlation to the companies that you really see that are concerned with longevity and about supporting the community, the industry, etc. And they're not as worried about what this year's profits look like in comparison to what they're going to be doing in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that's
agree.
where the industry is going to be going, and the fact that you guys are helping spearhead that for the wheel industry is a huge thing, because in this day and age, as we're all home,
yeah,
a lot of us are just watching YouTube videos, and a lot of people are making plans like, hey, this is what I want to do. And I think there's now more than ever, content and education and all this stuff is being made available online. So regardless of what business you're in, you should probably always try to educate your customers.
Yeah. And I would say one thing for people out there listening and watching is you really need to understand, and I know this because we are a manufacturer, we do make private label wheels, we do make wheels for some of the companies that you have easily said or know very well. And the one thing you'll know is that the social following, subscribers, it doesn't necessarily correlate to market share, wheel sales, how many people. And so, listen, one of the hardest parts I think for us, and this is really getting internal, but is, we have a YouTube channel with 7,600 subscribers. But when I think about the fact that I know how many wheels we sell, or I know how many, all the things that we're involved in, man, it's hard to continuously try to put so much effort and time and stuff into something and know that 300 people are going to watch this.
Oh, you're telling me, bud. I know.
I know.
Story of our life.
But we put it out again with that longevity in mind. We put it out there knowing that this information is factual, it's valid, it's real. You could take it to the bank, and this content will be there hopefully forever. So this will help somebody out somewhere down the line, whatever, then we're good with making it. But it is hard when you try to really, think about oh man, 340 people watched this thing this week, and you're like, it took like a whole day to make that.
You're looking long term. That's the only way you can approach that stuff.
No, I agree. It's wild.
All right. Well, Dane,
I think
take
that
us
pretty
home.
much wraps
Scott,
us up. It's been
wow.
And we always love talking with
We need
Scott.
to do this more.
Always. This has been fun. Well,
we need to do this more.
Yeah, we won't make
definitely.
this the only one we do, for a while. We'll definitely have you back on sooner than later. And hopefully sooner than later, we will also be in our new studio, able to do things a little bit, differently. But, for the time being, Zoom's doing its job. We're making it happen. And, I was going to say, I like your setup there. So I got to wrap this up because we do actually have to go to the building, though. We got stuff we're doing today. So,
we're working.
Guys,
all right.
Yeah, we're working.
Dane is. Anthony and I get to stay home for the first time. today.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So this time I'm going there, but you know, we trade places once in a while.
Right.
So guys, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Scott in particular, thank you for taking time out of your very busy day.
My pleasure.
To,
thank you for
sit
having
down
me
with us and just have a fun chat. You know, industry chat doesn't matter if it's different industries. Everybody can kind of relate on one level or another. So it's been fun. And for those listening, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you go check out Scott and KONIG Wheels and his podcast. You got a podcast. Mind telling people about that real quick?
Yeah, we got a podcast. We do one every Wednesday. We call it the Wheel Wednesday podcast. I won't say where we got any inspiration. And and in addition to that, we also do some interviews with different personalities, YouTube people, stuff like that. But we put out a lot of content on our YouTube channel. We're trying to put out a couple pieces a week, and there's a lot of wheel information. So even if you don't want our stuff, hey, no problem. Go check it out. Find out some stuff that you should be doing.
Yep.
Nice. Well, I'll include links to your stuff down in the description below the video here, so that way
super easy to
know.
find us.
Easy.
KONIG Wheels USA.
Right,
yeah.
Boom. Done. All right.
Love it.
So that does it for us. Till next time. This is us saying adios.
See ya.
Take care.